Genetic entropy, an evolutionist's worst nightmare. Oh no. I mean, assuming that by evolutionist you mean just, well, a person who understands that evolution is a thing, or to put it another way, a normal person with a functional brain, then as one of those, to an extent, no, genetic entropy is not my worst nightmare. I mean, it changes from week to week, but this time my worst nightmare is being stuck in an endless loop where I argue with idiots every day and they never learn and come up with yet more ridiculous bullshit, slowly driving me insane so I don't even know it's happening anymore. Thankfully, that's just a bad dream and not my literal existence.
So from generation to generation...
Wait a second. That's Matt Powell! Oh god, the nightmare is real! Or was life always the nightmare? I mean, there are a lot of humans in the real life, so it's not exactly the best place. But do bear in mind, at least I can drink whiskey there. So it could be worse. Well, guess I'm screwed either way. What do you want, Matt?
As we accumulate genetic mutations, we actually accumulate 1 to 200 genetic mutations, or what's known as neutral mutations, per person per generation.
Oh, okay, we're still on this, are we? AKA, hi, I'm Matt Powell, and I have no idea how evolution or biology works. Ask me anything, but make sure you don't use big words, otherwise my brain will fall out again, and it's starting to get really dirty from the last 700 times that's happened. Honestly, he's more filth than brain now. Explains a lot.
And so what that means is that our offspring will have 1 to 200 typographical errors that we did not have in our genetics.
No, and as always, this is assuming what you are even saying is true. It means they will have 1 to 200 differences or changes. Errors, not the right word, because when it comes to genetic, there is no how it's meant to be. And in fact, approximately 98% of human DNA doesn't appear to code for anything. In theory, only 1 or 2 of those changes will even apply to the actual effective coded portion of the DNA. Although, to be fair, that's not actually the whole picture. A lot of the DNA that appears to do nothing seems to be a sort of hodgepodge into certain features. So it does something, but ultimately, it's extremely inefficient in its coding and could probably still have vast swathes removed. Also, bear in mind that you make it sound like the changes are additions to the sequence when actually it's changes to them. It's not like it stacks on top. Really, this whole errors thing, in most cases, is more like if you had a house filled with light switches. Yeah, having them on or off affects how portions of the house looks, but it's not really changing anything about the structure of the building.
And so population geneticists have all come to the conclusion that our genetics are actually deteriorating as we move on and as time progresses.
Okay, after looking around, I found a few articles in reference to this idea, although all of them are pretty old, so I don't know what is said about it these days, but yeah, humankind's DNA could very well be acquiring more aberrations than it did before. But 2 things. First off, you're missing a really key factor in this idea, one that makes it mean something completely different to what you might present it as. And 2, if you're agreeing this is true, what the hell does that say about God and his perfect designs? I swear, so often theists make out their own Lord fella to just be a completely incompetent nincompoop. It's like they don't really know what they're doing. Yes, I mean all of them.
As we reproduce, our genetics become worse over time as a population.
Right, yeah, I thought so. No, you are missing an incredibly key component to that idea. That of natural selection, or the lack thereof. Humans are no longer subject to natural selection in the same way that they used to be. With technology and medical care improving all the time, their ability to survive and reproduce when they would otherwise have passed or been unable to find a mate has increased, essentially stopping natural selection for the most part as the selection pressures are moved on to different things like personality or ability to provide wealth or any number of other less tangible factors, rather than simply being able to survive.
And so genetic entropy is something that evolutionists and atheists will often mock and say that it's a ridiculous idea that our genes could be deteriorating.
No. They say that your idea of genetic entropy is stupid because you don't have a clue what evolution is or does and how it works. Also, to say atheists, not even all atheists believe evolution is a real thing. I know, I've talked to them, and yes, they use the argument that evolution is just a theory, as well, as completely asinine and ridiculous as that saying is. And when told to look up what a scientific theory is, will just spout what a layman theory is at you, instead of actually learning something. You know who you are, and I am not going to take you seriously on the subject until you stop being stupid.
But I'm sorry, if you have 1 to 200 typographical errors per person per generation,
again, that's 1 or 2 or a handful at most, relevant ones, on average. Those others are basically just ignored. It's like having a big disorganized bucket of Lego and then a shallow tray of organized ones sat on top. It doesn't matter if you move the ones in the bucket or change them about, take some away or add them even. Really, it's still going to be a disorganized mess. But those ones in the nice organized bit, if you move them even slightly, everything is ruined and you have to chuck the whole thing out. No, you're anal.
I mean, that over time is going to accumulate in the genetic pool and cause us to literally go extinct.
You really just do not know how any of this works, do you? Matt, if that wasn't the case and humans were fully subject to natural selection in the way that they have always been before recently, given a few millions of years, guess what's going to have happened to humans? They'll have gone extinct, replaced by their descendants. But humans themselves, not actually a thing anymore. I swear the harder you try to disprove this, the more you prove something more fundamental. That you, Matt Powell, are a total fool. It's pretty great.
Population geneticists know that these errors...
Wait, did this video just try to end and then Matt kept talking like, oh, this isn't over, but I thought he was done being stupid? You know, we never consider the effect that these kinds of dumbs have on the media they are creating. You just think of all the videos out there that have been made by these guys. Those videos didn't ask to be born, and yet they were forced into this world only to have ridicule and mockery to look forward to until the world eventually forgets they even exist. Or some arsehole comes along and points out how frickin' stupid they are. It's okay, I'm allowed, because my videos want to be made. They need the stupid to sustain them and give them power.
that are accumulating will have some effect, even if that effect is vanishingly small.
You know, you're saying this like you have a meaningful point, but if this whole genetic deterioration thing is true in the way that you're describing it, so what? That doesn't stop evolution being a real thing. Because as I said, there's a reason why it would happen. It's not like humans live in the same kind of society today than they did only a few hundred years ago, and dramatically different from a few / tens of thousands of years ago. And it still casts considerable doubt on, if God am so smart, why human so work bad? Because that's the thing. Either you're right about this, and therefore God's useless, or you don't understand it, and well, you don't understand it, because of course you don't.
So all mutations, all errors in the human genome must have some effect on fitness.
No, they don't. Why must they? Because you say so? Because you don't have a single solitary clue what you're talking about? Because no, they mustn't. As I said, most are just alterations to code that already did nothing, as far as we're aware. And on that note, why does human DNA have so much apparently junk code? Or at the very least, spaghetti code, when again created by a perfect boy. It's almost like it was actually created by a process that requires a fair amount of randomness, although the process itself is not random. Much like many video games have random elements, but the game itself has constraints that make it a game. Evolution is the same. It has randomness, but the constraints make it work. And yeah, it needs randomness, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't stick. Good job there's apparently a buffer, eh?
And so, in 2003, the Human Genome Project was completed, and they found as well that we lose 1 to 2% of our genetic information as human beings per generation.
Not really sure what you mean by that, and I can't find anything backing that idea up or, giving it context, and for some strange reason, you never provide links to the shit you reference. And yeah, I know, I am the same. I never said I wasn't a hypocrite, But then again, I'm not trying to overthrow the entirety of science, so I don't think I need to. And I'm lazy. But really, why do you reference science? These are going to be the evolutionists as well. They understand the science behind it way better than I ever could, and obviously infinitely better than you, because, well, any number is infinitely bigger than 0, right? Probably. I don't know. But either those guys are telling straight facts, including one about the old evolving lark, or they aren't, when why even bring them up?
So our offspring is losing genetic information as time moves on. Mutations are accumulating in the genetic code, and this is causing us to go extinct as a population.
Okay, he's repeating himself, obviously, because as we all know, the more times you repeat something inaccurate, the more times it becomes true, by the power of infinite bullshit or something. But well, you gotta love the sad music, which I hope is still there and I haven't had to strip out using computer magic because YouTube gets the big mad at me. And also, I can't help but love listening to people talking about who man's doing and extinct. That's my kink, man. Shit's hot. Makes me rock hard.
There are scientific papers that have been written about why we should have been extinct 100 times over, if evolution were even true.
You wanna share some of them with us? Are they considered actually good papers, or are they from your mates? And if they are peer-reviewed by real science guys, what's the caveat that you are missing? Because that's the thing about science that you never seem to grasp. You have to take all of it. You can't just take that little bit that you think proves your point. You have to show everything. That shows how it all works. Otherwise, you have a Sir Sick video made on you. And no one wants that.
And so, the way that evolutionists try to rescue this is by invoking natural selection.
Oh, f*** you. God damn it, that little invoking natural selection bit pissed me off more than I expected. Sorry, you just know he's going to say something really stupid now, and I just need to mentally prepare by venting frustration, I think. Okay, fine, let's do this.
But the problem is that natural selection cannot detect neutral mutations.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god. What the fuck? What do you think natural selection is, Matt? Natural selection isn't literally an entity, you complete buffoon. Natural selection is the name for an idea. It can't detect fucking anything. It doesn't need to. You really haven't the slightest hint of a clue what you are talking about. I know I keep saying that, but every time he speaks, it's worse than I thought.
So these 100 to 200 typographical errors in our bodies that get passed on from generation to generation cannot be detected by natural selection and therefore cannot be weeded out.
Right, natural selection doesn't need to detect these errors because, again, that's not how it works. The errors that have an actual effect on performance of a creature, on its ability to survive and reproduce and thus its ability to succeed in, well, the world, the things that are bad at this are eaten, or don't eat enough and die, and are then eaten. The ones that are best at this, the fittest if you will live long enough to make more of themselves than the others, so those better at surviving abilities are passed on. That is what we call natural selection. It's just a word for a thing that happens. The very notion it can sense anything is so ridiculous it makes me sound smart, which is impossible, and yet here we are.
Natural selection only selects and removes the genes that are most deleterious, or the mutations that are the most deleterious. It might enhance your best beneficial mutation and might remove the worst deleterious mutation.
What? Wait, what is going on? That is how it works. So, apparently you know. But then, what are you talking about? The changes that do nothing have no effect, so they don't go anywhere. If they do build up into something bad, then they will likely be removed. I'm so confused, because now it's like you do kind of know how it works, but it has to be some weird change to it so that you can pretend it doesn't make any sense. I'm starting to think, Matt, you might be doing this shit on purpose.
But the neutral mutations are completely invisible to natural selection. Selection cannot act upon them.
Because it doesn't need to, but when they become something bad, it will. I feel like I'm just slowly circling the drain of madness. He knows what things are and simultaneously doesn't. I was completely right about my life being a living, waking nightmare.
And so natural selection has its limits. And so for evolutionists to claim that natural selection is what's causing us to select beneficial mutations, and those beneficial mutations make us better over time.
I can't even begin to think what he is going to say in an attempt to refute that. It's like if you were talking about someone training for the Olympics. Yeah, sure, you'll be getting better over time, faster, stronger, more able to do whatever it is you need. But what about the colour of your underpants? That keeps changing and has no impact on your abilities. That disproves your ability to improve physically because I am very smart.
Well, even if that were the case, we're still getting 1 to 200 neutral mutations or typographical errors in our genetics that are building up along with those beneficial mutations.
Okay, 1, completely irrelevant, and 2, again, this isn't a build-up, this isn't piles and piles of extras. This is likely changes to something that was already potentially meaningless or has lost its purpose. Stop f***ing repeating yourself!
Even if you were to grant their argument. And so errors over time will cause death.
A, we don't need you to grant shit, and B, whose argument is that anyway? I have never heard anyone say that, so it looks like you are picking out nonsense from the big book of shit that no one ever said. And that's just great. We definitely didn't have enough gibberish in this video already.
So for evolutionists to claim that natural selection is going to preserve us as a population, when natural selection cannot even detect these deleterious mutations that are getting added to the genetic pool.
Oh, right. No, I'm done. And no, Matt, natural selection is not going to save humans. It has basically nothing to do with the human evolutionary process anymore. And more importantly, even if it was, because natural selection can do absolutely nothing to protect them from me. Only whiskey is going to protect them from me. So get to it, humans. My glass is empty and my thirst grows. Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel, Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the